Okay, so we are going to start with inner classes. So that is part of your object oriented programming. I didn't do that at that time because it's too much of work. So I just want to do it in separate session. So I am going to do it today. Okay, inner classes. So let's straight away move on to inner classes. Inner class means a class declared inside a class. So as the name suggests, right, you can see the term inner class. Inner class means a class declared inside a class, right? So you can see we have a class. Inside a class also we can create another class. Okay, so that is called inner class. So I will just do a small example. So I'm going to my code folder src. So let's call it something like inner class. Let's call it my outer. That is my main class, my outer dot java. So there I can create a class, of course, right? Public class my outer. So inner class means inside this class I can create classes, right? For example, I can say class my inner, something like this. So in that case, this particular class is called inner class. Now remember, particular Java file can have any number of classes. That is something like this. So that is different thing. In that case, you are going to get two classes when you compile. But that is not inner class. Inner class means you have a class inside a class. So that is called inner class. That is called inner class. Anyway, there are variations of inner classes. This is one type of inner classes that I created. Okay, right. So let's move on. So if you have any questions, then and there ask. Okay, right. So inner classes we can subdivide into different types again, right? Non-static nested classes, actually those are the one we usually call inner classes, and static nested classes. That means this inner class I can mark it as a static inner class also, right? Just like a static variable or static behavior, I can mark this inner class as a static inner class, then we call it static nested class. Okay, so non-static nested classes are the one that we usually call inner class, right? One that we usually call inner class. Then those inner classes also we can subdivide inner classes. That is this, you can see same name we all out for different reasons. So usually we can subdivide these things into non-static nested class and static nested class. That non-static nested class is sometimes called inner classes, but special case of a non-static nested class is inner class. Inner class means something like this, right? And also you can declare classes inside a method. Say something like I have a method. First try to understand the concept. Do, so let's say void do something, right? So I can create class inside a method also. So something like this. So class my, say, local inner class. Let's call it method local inner class. Right now this class is a inner class, but special inner class because it is not just inside the class. It is inside a method also. So that kind of classes are called method local inner class. So this is just a inner class. This kind of classes are called method local inner classes. Okay, right. Then of course if you mark your inner class as a static class, then we call it static nested class. Static nested class, I will have that kind of a class also. My static inner class, then it has to be something like static. Okay, so now you can see this is a static nested class. This one and this one are not static nested classes, both are non-static nested classes. This is a non-static, this is an inner class which is a non-static nested class. This is a method local inner class, again non-static nested class. Okay, then we have another type also, that is called anonymous class. Anonymous inner class we will discuss at the end. Okay, so you can see little bit complex at the beginning, right? Little bit complex at the beginning, but you can understand this 100%. You can understand this if you have understood the object oriented concepts, right? So what I have shown you is all are inner classes in general, but this one and this one are non-static inner classes. One is just a inner class, other one is a method local inner class. This is a static nested class, right? So these two are non-static nested class. There's another type of non-static nested class which is called anonymous class, that I am going to discuss at the end. Okay, so that is a big picture. Then of course someone will ask, why do we need this kind of inner classes, right? Non-static nested classes, static nested classes, etc. The simple reason is we want to make a class inner class or static or non-static nested class when we want to have better encapsulation. It's a design feature. Of course, whatever you do with the inner class, you can do it as a normal class as well. But when you define a class as an inner class or non-static nested class or static nested class, you are saying that that class is going to be used only within the context of your outer class, right? So that means these classes have no real meaning or use independently. They have the real meaning only within the context of this outer class. Therefore I am going to make those classes either nested static class or nested non-static class, or that means basically inner class. Okay, so that is a design decision for better encapsulation, right? Better encapsulation, it's something like mother and child when the mother is pregnant, right? So that the child is not going to survive or have any context outside the world, therefore the child is inside the mother, right? Of course, in that case the child is going to have a life outside the mother after sometimes, but in programming that child is going to survive only within the mother. Therefore we are going to make it inner class rather than an independent class. Okay, so it's all about encapsulation, right? Better encapsulation, because if it doesn't have any sense, independent sense, why don't you make it a inner class? Okay, so that is the idea. Okay, so that is the idea. So this is a very sort of a complicated thing, right? So therefore if it will take some time, you have to think about those things especially using some design concepts. Okay, best practices, then only you will understand why we have concept like this. Anyway, this concept is heavily used, right? If you start working with something like jQuery in your semester 3, we are going to discuss the web development. We are heavily using anonymous methods, anonymous classes, etc. Otherwise you can't understand what is happening, right? If you are using some frameworks, we are using these anonymous classes, inner classes, etc. Okay, right? So I hope you get what is mean by what is the use of inner classes, right? What is the use of static nested or non-static nested classes? Okay, right. So anonymous classes, there's a special reason that I will explain later, right? So I'm not taking anonymous classes, though it is also non-static nested classes, that I will be discussing later. Actually there are a lot of usages of anonymous inner classes. Okay, for this topic may not affect your exam. Of course they might ask just 1 or 2 questions. I think 2019 they have asked 2 questions. But if you don't understand these things, you are not going to be a very good software engineer, and also you are not going to understand things like swim programming, right? Event handling, right? If you want to understand, definitely spend some time, get things clarified if it is not clear, right? So do all those things and understand this. It's a must, otherwise you are not going to understand event handling, you are not going to understand swing programming. Okay, so therefore it's very important, right? So gradually it will get into you, right? So think about the big picture and understand. Okay, so that is why I want to take this as a separate topic, uh, though it is part of the object oriented programming. Okay, right. Right. So when it comes to inner classes, there are some special privileges for the inner classes. So something like when a mother is pregnant, the child has special privilege to the mother. Right. We know that the child can get nutrition from mother. Something like that. Right. So this is also something like that. When you create inner class, your inner class has special privilege with the outer class. Right. Your inner class has a special privilege with the outer class. So before that, let's see what happens when we compile it. Right. So let's compile this class. Okay. So now I have a class, my outer. It has a non-static inner class, static inner class, and also method local inner class. Okay, method local inner class. Now let's compile this and see what happened also. Right. So I'm going to take a command prompt. I'm moving to the D. So I coded in the code called src folder under my code. So I'm going to code src. Now I have my Java files. I have one class, my outer class, right? Uh, let's double check whether I have saved it. Yes. Now I am going to compile my outer class. Right? That is the only class I have created. Of course, inside I have created a lot of classes, but I am just going to because it's a public class. I have to name this file as the same as my public class. That is my outer m. Right. So let's see whether I have named it properly. Yes. Now I am going to compile it. Right. Now I am going to compile it. So I'm just going to resize this. And let's see whether we are getting the compile classes also. Java C. I can use of course star.java, but I am going to specifically compile this time. My, because it's in case not case sensitive. My outer.java. Right, you can see no compile errors. Usually we get only one class when we compile, but in this case you can see there are different classes here. Of course there's a class called my outer, right? Then we have the my outer inner class, my outer my inner class, my outer my static inner class, and also my outer my method local inner class. So that means how many classes have been created? One class for this one class for this one, another class for this one, another class for this one, now three, and another class for this one. Four classes has been created. Of course there are four classes now, right? This one the big class, then this one the inner class, non-static inner class, non-static nested class, this one the static nested class, now three, and this method local inner class. You can see four classes has been created. The convention, or not the convention, the rule is, of course your my outer class is having the name as my outer dot class. This one is having the name my outer dot my inner dot class, right? My outer dot, now you can see my, sorry, not dot, my outer dollar my inner class. So my this one is having my outer dollar my static inner, right? So this one has my outer dollar, right? Then the method name, right? My method, sorry, my outer dollar my method local inner class. So that is this name. So always you can see the full name is the outer class name dollar the whatever the inner class name, this one, no, this one. So you can see all together there are four classes created, in this case. Of course, if I had only just this one, I am going to have the outer class and this one saying my outer dollar my inner, right? So that is how it works. Okay, right? So for each nested or static or non-static nested class, you get a separate class, but that class name is going to be prefixed with the outer class dollar and your inner class. Okay, so that is how it works. Now let's discuss about that special features. One of the special feature of inner classes in general, all those inner classes are, these inner classes have access to the outer class, all the attributes and behaviors of the outer class, right? All the attributes and behaviors of the outer class, even for the private attributes and behaviors. We know that usually for private attributes are not accessible by anyone, not even your subclasses. It's only for you. But when it comes to inner classes, but when I say inner classes, all these categories together, static nested or non-static nested classes, they have access even to the private variables or the private methods in the parent or the outer class. So that is a special privilege you have to remember, right? An inner class has access to all the attributes and methods, that is instance or static, in the outer class regardless of their access modifier, even the private member. So that is very important statement, right? So your inner classes have access to everything of your outer class, even your private things, right? Private things of the outer class. So but your outer class do not have access to the private things of the inner class. So that is how it works. So your inner class have access even to the private things of the outer class, but outer class do not have access to the private things of the inner class. So that is how the accessibility works in inner classes. Okay, inner classes. Right? So this diagram shows that this inner class have access to the private attributes and behaviors, but your outer class do not have or does not have access to the private attributes and behaviors of the inner class, right? Inner class. So that is how the access controlling or access privilege work. Okay, right. So the other thing is you cannot have static variables and static methods in your inner classes. That means you can't declare static things inside this. Of course, your class can be static, then it's a static nested class, but you can't have static variables and methods declared in your inner classes. That means your normal inner classes, static nested classes, or method local inner classes. Other things you can have the constructors, you can have normal instance variables, you can have instance methods, but no static variables or static methods. So the reason is always your inner class are going to be connected with the instance of your outer class. So therefore each and there can be different instance of my outer class. If you have static variables, it's going to violate the concept of static variable is related to just one value for the class, because outer class are not static. Therefore people are going to create instance of outer class. That is why they have restricted by design. You can't have static things in your inner classes, whatever static nested or non-static nested or whatever. You can't have static variables and static methods inside these. So that is another rule. Okay, right? Because otherwise it violate lot of concepts. Right now I explain how to compile. You can just compile your outer class, right? When you compile the outer class, not only a class for the outer class, that is my outer dot class, it is going to generate another one, my outer dollar my inner dot class. So that is if you have only one inner class. If you have so many inner classes like static nested method local, if for each one you are going to have the outer class dollar your inner class dot class. Okay, so that is how it works. And also if you want to run a method, you have to use a different approach to run that method also. Usually we can run, for example, let's write a small method here. Anyway, so we'll do that later. Okay, right? So now let's see how to access this inner class, right? So why we are having inner class? Because the inner class is going to have some attributes and behaviors, etc., right? So it is going to give us some features, right, for our system. So now we are going to discuss how we are going to use that inner class. So there are again two ways you can use inner classes, right? Two ways, and we can see approach one. So I am heavily referring to your PDF, because after the session again you have to go through the PDF, do this coding by your own, right? Do some experimentations, right? So then only you are going to understand this. But if you understand this, and of course the object oriented, you have 100% understood. Now you are ready to do your real world software development. Okay, so remember, in your semester 3 also we have programming, but that we are not going to learn any those programming concepts there. We are going to learn about some advanced data structures and algorithms, right? So now this is now we are nearing the end of your programming. Okay, so now you must be pretty much ready to go to the real world and start programming. Okay, so because we are not going to learn any Java or any other programming concepts like object oriented concepts in the future, right? Now we are going to finish it. So we are in the very latter parts. Okay, right? So therefore it's very important you do some coding, ask some questions if you are not really clear, because these are the very end, right? Very end, right? So the people who are in the industry also, they also very rarely use these concepts, right? So of course they have to use it when it comes to event programming, etc., but sometimes they may not use it for even months if they are not doing event driven programming. Okay, so therefore these are the advanced things. Okay, right? So there are two ways you can use or access your inner classes. One of first approach is outer class create an instance of inner class and call the inner class method. Other classes only use the outer class. So that is one approach. Okay, so that is one approach. So what I am going to do is I am going to demonstrate that approach. Okay, so I am going to delete this one method local inner class, and also I am going to delete the static nested class. I am just going to have my normal non-static inner class now. Okay, because otherwise it's too much of things to demonstrate at the same time. So now it's very simple. I have the outer class, and inside I have inner class, and I have a method in my outer class. Now again I am going to delete all these classes and recompile. Now what I am going to get is just two classes. One class called my outer dot class, another class called my outer dollar my inner dot class. Okay, of course this is just a method in the my outer class. Okay, right? So let's compile it again. Right, now you can see no compile errors, just two classes have been created, right? Now let's see how to do how to work with this, right? So in the first approach, what we have to do is your outer class is going to create an instance of your inner class, and your outer class is then going to use that inner class attributes and behaviors. Okay, so that is how it works. Okay, right? So let's see how to do that. Now let's assume that I have a instance variable in my outer class, int x equal 5, right? So that is just an instance variable. Then in this approach, this inner class is going to be used by what? My outer class, right? So the other external world is going to use only your outer class. They are not going to directly use your inner class. Okay, so that is approach one, right? So let's create an instance of just like creating an instance variable. Now I can create an instance variable which has the type of my inner, right? So my inner, so that's I am going to do. So let's say my inner, let's call it inner for the time being, just a name I gave, equal new my inner. Once you systematically understand this, it's not difficult, it's very easy, right? Very easy once you understand it. Okay, right? So that is how now I have, you can see my outer class has an instance variable called inner, which is an instance of my inner, right? So of course it is a something like that. Okay, right? So that is now your my outer class has a instance of inner, right? My outer class has an instance of inner. Of course you can have your attributes and behaviors here, right? You can have your attributes and behaviors here in this particular class. Okay, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to write a method here, behavior here and going to call that behavior from of course you can't call behaviors in your class body, you have to call other behaviors in your methods, in your behaviors. Okay, right, class, right, not in the outer class. My inner do, right, so I will call this my outer do, right, my outer do, my outer do. You can see I have two behaviors. The outer class has a behavior called my outer do, inner class has a behavior called my inner do. Now this is hello from inner, right, inner. And now let's have a system out println from my outer class also, behavior of the outer class also. Let's say hello from outer, right, outer, right. So similarly I am going to have some by statements also. This is by from outer, this one is going to be by from inner, right. So just to see whether these are getting called. Okay, right. Now remember my outer class, whenever outer class is created, instance of inner class is getting created. So therefore my outer class methods have access to this object, right, in inner object, right. So now I'm going to do that. I'm going to call this inner dot, I'm going to call this inner class method now, right, inner class method now, right. You can see when an outer class instance is created, this variable is created and an instance of inner class is also created. So this is the class body for the inner class. In my outer class my outer do method, I am calling the inner class my inner do method, right, my inner do behavior. So what is going to be the output when I call this? Of course I need to have another class to test this, right, I need to have another class to test this. So let's create that test class also. Let's call it my outer test, because I am going to test my outer class. Of course the outer class is creating an instance of inner class. Let's call it my outer test one, because I am going to have another test class also. Java, say public class my outer test one. So I am going to have my main method public static void main string args. Okay, so what I am going to do is I am going to create an instance of my outer Java, my outer class in my test class. My outer, let's call it outer equal new my outer, right. Now once I create a class instance of my outer, I have access to this, right. So because it's package access, anyway if I want I can make it public also. So let's make it public. Now I can call the my outer do. So from there, right, outer dot my outer do, right, my outer do, right. So you are creating outer object of outer class and calling the my outer behavior of that outer class. In when you create a my outer instance, it is creating an inner class instance. Of course the inner class declaration is there in the class itself, and in your outer class methods you are calling the inner class my inner do, which you have coded in your inner class. Okay, so that is how it's going to happen. Of course your outer class have access to the inner class. So your outer class can call the inner class public things. Only thing is outer class cannot call the inner class private things. Okay, private things. This is not a private thing, therefore outer class can call the inner class non-private method called my inner do. Okay, now let's compile. So I just have to compile. Now I want to compile both, right. My test class also I want to compile, therefore I am just going to say star.java. That means I am compiling the two files, two classes, right. So you can see no errors. Now I must have the my outer dot class, my outer dollar my inner class, and my outer test one class. I must have three classes created. course I got only 2 classes. Why is that? Maybe I have not saved the other one. Yes, I have not saved this one. That is why I got only 2 classes. Now I am going to get the third one because I didn't save it last time. Okay, I get error. Public class my outer test. Yes, my outer test T capital, because public class name and file name must be the same. So that is why I'm getting error. Right. So I'm going to fix that. Right, now I must have get all 3 classes, my outer class, inner class and the test class. Okay, now I can run that my outer test. You know that in my outer test I am creating instance of my outer and calling the outer method. That outer method is calling the inner method, right? Inner method. So let's see. So my expected output is what? Hello from outer. Then this is getting called hello from inner, bye from inner. Then you are done. Then bye from outer, bye from outer. Right now, let's see. Now I can just call the run the this particular one because it has the main method, right? So I will say Java, right? Now you can see hello from outer, then inner method is called, so it says hello, then it says bye. Now the control came back to the outer class method again, it says bye from outer, right? So that is exactly what we expected. Okay, so now you can see that. So that is the first approach. Your other classes are not going to work with your inner classes, they are just going to work with your outer classes. Your outer class is going to work with the inner class, right? Inner class to get something done which is specific to that outer class. It has its own inner class. It is going to create an instance of inner class and do the get that service or the behavior, right? So as part of the behavior of the outer class, right? So that is the most, that actually this is the natural way of using inner classes, right? Because inner classes are going to be used by your outer classes, of course. That is why it is inside your outer class, and your outer class is going to create an instance of your inner class and call the behaviors when it is doing some behaviors. Okay, right? So I hope you get it, right? I hope you get it. If you have any questions, please raise your questions right now, because this is the end of your object oriented concepts. Okay, so actually nothing left. We are going to complete everything. Okay, right? So that is approach 1, and that is the most popular or most widely used natural approach. Because why we want to encapsulate your class inside another class? Because it's going to be used only by that particular class. Of course, you can see that class is used only by this is used by this particular class as part of the behavior of that outer class. It has call a behavior of the inner class. Now you can have any number of these methods also, right? You can have different methods, right? Here, then those methods you can call. If you have another method, you can call. Okay, but of course it cannot be private things are not accessible by your outer class, right? For example, if I make it private void my inner dot do, now your outer class cannot call the inner private things of your inner, right? So that is something you have to remember. Now let's compile it again, everything. Okay, I didn't get error, so that is strange. So it looks like private things I can call. Okay, so private thing you can call, right? Okay, now let's run that also. So that is strange thing. I thought private things you can't call. My outer test one. Yes, of course you can call the private things as well, right? You can call the private things as well, not just the public things, right? So you can see my inner do is a private method. That outer class can call the private method as well, right? Private method as well, right? So another thing is, this inner class have access to your private things as well. So that is another thing you have to understand. Now let's see. Of course this method have access to this particular instance variable, right? So let's do that also. I'm going to do something like system out println and print the value of x. So that is obviously possible, right? Let's say x from outer is and I'm going to print x plus x. So that is possible, right? So let's do it after hello from outer, right? Then of course your inner class also have access to this x, right? So let's try to print that from inner class also, right? So it's going to print what? It's going to print 5, because it's going to see it as 5. Here also it is going to see it as 5, right? 5. Now when you comes back, still it is going to be 5, right? It is going to be 5. So after calling also I'm going to print it. Of course it is going to be 5 again, right? So now I'm going to say what is going to be the output. uh, so it is calling the my outer do, right? My outer do, right? So first I am going to say hello from outer, then x from outer is 5, then hello from inner, x from not outer, x from inner is 5, then by from inner, then again x from outer is 5, then by from outer. Now let's see, right? So now here you can say outer class is calling the behavior of the inner class. Inner class is accessing the attribute of a outer class, which is this x attribute of x. Okay, attribute of x. So inner class have access to the outer class. Okay, no compile errors. Now I'm going to run it. You can see hello from outer, x from outer is 5, hello from inner, x from inner is 5, by from inner, x from outer is 5, by from outer, right? Now if I want, I can even change the value of x here also by inner class. Of course outer class can anytime change it, right? I can even change also, and also even though this is private, usually private things are not given access to even your subclasses, but even private things are accessible from there. Though I make it private, still I am not going to get any compile errors, right? So that is something you have to remember. Again, let's compile, right? You can see no issue. You can still run it without any issue. You can see your private things, you get your inner classes get access to your private things as well, right? So this x can be accessed, and also you can change it also. Now let's change it. X equals, let's say 10, right? X equal 10. Now let's print it again from inner class. Now this is going to be reflected for the outer class also, because this is something outer class value, it has changed. Now it is going to be 10, right? So after the calling, x is going to be 10 for the outer class also, because it changed the outer class variable, right? Outer class variable. So let's compile it. Outer class private variable, of course private things can be accessed, right? Now you can see after change by the inner class, in the inner class also it is 10, in the outer class also now it can see the change, because it set the value of a outer class private variable. Okay, so inner class have access to the outer class, right? Inner class has access to the outer class, even the private things. Of course the outer class have access to the inner class as well, right? Inner class as well. For example, if I have variable like here, right, something like this, int y, right? Int y, and let's say 20 or 15, 15. I can access that also. For example, I can do something like this. System out println inner dot y, inner dot y, inner dot y, because I have the inner instance created, inner dot y. So I will say y access from outer. So let's say inner y access from outer. Now we can see I am accessing not on, I am of course I am calling the behavior of a inner, then I am accessing the attribute or instance variable of the inner also, right? Let's see. Okay, so cannot find symbol y. Inner dot y. Why is that? So this is my inner. Okay, inner dot y. Okay, I made a mess. I have declared the variable inside what? My inner do. I want to declare it inside my inner class, right? It's a mistake I made, right? So because it's a local variable, right? Local variable cannot be accessed from there. I should have declared it like this. Now this is a instance variable of my inner class, right? So that is correct, right? So earlier it was not a local variable. Sorry, it was not a instance variable of the inner class. Earlier it was a method local variable, right? So that was error. Now I should be okay, right? So I can access the instance method. I must be able to access the instance variable. Earlier, though I thought it is instance variable, actually it was a local variable. Okay, now let's compile it again. Right, now we can see no issue. Now let's run it also. Right, you can see I can access the inner value from the outer class, right? Outer class. Of course, I could have even changed it also, right? I could have even changed it also. Of course, the inner class have access. I could have even changed that value also, right? So that means I could have said inner dot y equal something like 20 or 25, right? 25. So that is also possible. That is also possible. So I will just put this line before calling the method. Then I am going to change the value also, inner dot y. So I am going to demonstrate everything. Let's say not 15, it is 20. Now if I print this value, it is going to be 20, and also if I access it inside this, again it's going to be 20, right? So let's see that. So now it is going to be 20, right? For if I access it from inside also, it is going to be 20, right? So let's do that also. Y from inner, right? Y from inner, because anyway y is your inner class. Because already I have changed it, though it is initially 15, already I have changed it to 20. It's going to be 20. It's going to be 20. Okay, so let's compile and run it. Remember I set it to 20, then only I am calling the my inner do, right? So they are at that time the value is not 15, the value is 20. Okay, so it's 25 and 10. Output is 25 and 10. And you can see 25 and 10 in this portion, right? So you can see that outer class have access to the inner class members, inner class has access to the outer class members, right? Outer class members. So that is how it works, right? That is how it works. So you can see in the inner class I am calling the outer class members. In my outer class I am calling the inner class behaviors and inner class attributes, right? The good thing is your inner class have access even to the private things, right? Even to the private things, not only public things, right? Not only public things, right? So they have access even to the public things. But now let's see, this is private behavior. Even though I can make it private, can I access that also? So that means, of course, inner class have access to the private things in your outer class. Now let's see, of course the outer class have access to the private behavior. Now let's see whether they have access to the private variable also. Okay, private variable also. I just made this private, right? So that is possible. So that means it's a binding where outer class have access to the private things of the inner class have access to the private things of the outer class as well, right? So no issue, no issue. Actually there's a small mistake in your note. I will update that note and re-upload to the Google Classroom. Okay, so I just have mentioned that only inner class has access to the private things of the outer class, but it has to be both inner class has access to the private things in the outer class, and outer class has access to the private things in the inner class. Okay, so I just made a small mistake there. Okay, not a small mistake, actually it's a big mistake. I will be updating the document and upload. Okay, right. So that is okay, right? So whenever we find some issues, we want to just rectify it. So that is part and parcel of life. Okay, right. So no one is perfect. Okay, now I hope you get the idea about accessing, right? Accessing. So inner class can access the outer class things, outer class can access the inner class things, even the private things. So it's a big bond, right? So it's a big bond, just something like mother and child, right? So they don't have any secrets. Okay, in Java. Right, so this is second approach of how to access the inner class. So this is very rarely used. This is very rarely used, but yes, possible. That is, you can create a instance of out inner class using instance of outer class. Now you can see instance of inner class is created using the outer class and directly call the methods of inner class. So that means a third party class can create an instance of inner class, but not directly. By using the instance of outer class, now they have access to the inner class directly, then they can call it. But only thing is, because inner class is a property of or the part of the outer class, the external classes can create inner class instance only by using the instance of the outer class. They can't directly call the or create the instance of inner class. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So that is why I just call it my outer test 1. I'm going to use this another class called my outer test 2 to demonstrate that, right? Demonstrate that. So after at the end of this class, I will be uploading all the classes that we have used so far into the Aurora CSLK/bit under our class schedule, right? So anyway, already there are some code there, but it is not updated. I will be uploading the updated zip file after the class. Okay, after this session, it will take another about half an hour. I will be uploading. Okay, so that is, I will show the place also. So the students who are in the class, who have visited our class, knows it, right? Aurora cs.lk/bit. So you can get the code from there, right? So I will be uploading the latest code there. Okay, under semester 1. Okay, right? So Aurora CSLK/bit, right? Okay. So let's move on. Okay, let's see how to do that, right? How to do that. So that is the third party class is going to create a instance from the inner from create an instance of a first create an instance of outer class, then using that outer class it's going to create instance of the inner class. Okay, so let's say public class my outer test 2. So let's have the main method, public static void main string args right. So first I am going to create an instance of the outer class, right? So that is my outer, let's call it just outer equal new my outer, right? So that is how we create this, save. Then using the outer class I am going to create the inner class. Now remember, I can't just call it my inner, right? I can't just call it my inner like this. What I have to call it is my outer dot my inner, my outer dot my inner. So that is how you have to name it, right? Then of course you can just give it a name. So that is how you refer to it, right? Then you can just give it a name. I will just call it inner equal, right? Now from your my outer class you have to create this inner class, right? So that is, I have a reference to the outer class. outer dot new, right, new my inner. So that is how you create it. So it's a funny way, right? That is how you create it. So I will just double check, right? Yes, so that is how you create it. Now you have got the instance of a inner class, so we call it inner, we call it inner. Now of course if it is private, this class is not going to access it. Why? This is a different class, right? So let's anyway try to call the method. Yeah, I'm going to get an error now because it's a private, it's a different scenario. Okay, so you can see it is a private method. So of course private methods cannot be accessed from outside. Anyway, let's try to call it and see. Now I'm going to compile it. I'm going to compile everything for the simplicity. Now you can see it says private access things. Of course the private, now you can see the private things, this private method can be accessed from your outer class, but because they have the special bond. And of course the private things can be private things of the outer class can also be accessed from inner class because they have the special bond, something like mother and child. But outside world they can't call the private things, right? They can't call the private things of the outer class as well as the inner class. Now I am going to do is, because I am calling this from the outside the class, I am just going to make it package, because those are in the package level. Or I can just make it public also. So let's make it public. Right. Again, if I want to access this y value, I want to make it public also, or at least per package. Now I am not going to get any errors. Right. So I am just calling a public behavior of the inner class. I hope I have saved everything. Yes. Okay, so still I am getting error. My outer test 2. Okay, so I think I made a mistake. My outer, okay, T capital, because it's a public class, my file name and class name must be exactly the same with the case sensitivity. That's a difference, small mistake. Okay, right, so I just fix that. Right, you can see no errors now, right? No errors. Now I can call this class also. It will create an instance of outer class. Then using the outer class, it is going to create an instance of inner class. Then it is directly called in the inner class instance. Okay, right. So let's see Java test 2. Right, so you can see from inner, it says now I am not calling the outer class, therefore directly I am calling the inner class. It says hello from inner, bye from inner. Right, now my inner class is accessing the y, then it's accessing the x also, and it's changing the x also. So y, remember y is the inner class variable, right? 15. Right, now it is not 20. Right, from when I call from outside, it has not changed. Now earlier, remember, we first change the value, then call the inner method. Now it is not changed, it is not, it is fresh value, therefore it is printed as 15. Then then the x value is of course 5, 15, 5. Now because you change it is 10, 15, 5, 10 and by, right? 15, 5, 10 and by. Okay, so it's very important you do that experimentation, right? Of course if you are lazy to do that, of course you are never going to be a programmer, right? You are not going to be a software engineer. You are going to end up in a clerk, or right, or someone, or even a politician if you are really talented on that. Right, බොරු කර කර ඉන්න පුළුවන්. Okay, right. So that is how, that is second approach. Of course your outer class can create instance of inner class, and the outside world is only calling the inner class, sorry, outer class. The second approach is the outside classes are directly, not directly, first creating an instance of outer class, and from outer class it is creating an instance of inner class. This syntax you have to remember, right? So it's a little bit funny syntax, but that makes sense. Then you can directly call the inner class method, because now you get the instance of an inner class, right? Instance of inner class from the help of the instance of the outer class, right? Instance of outer class. Okay, right. So those are the two ways you can work with inner classes, right? Either outer class is working with the inner class and you are working with the outer class, or by the help of the outer class, you are directly getting the instance of inner class and you are calling the attributes and behaviors. Okay, right. Right. So then let's discuss about the use of this keyword. Now remember, we already have used the keyword this, right? If I want to refer, if a class want to refer to the instance variable, optionally it can use the keyword this, right? Optionally, usually where we use this keyword is if there's ambiguity. For example, if I want to refer to the instance variable and I have a parameter also with the same name, now there's a priority will go into the parameter, then I will be I have to definitely use the this keyword, right? Otherwise there's ambiguity or the priority will go to the parameter. Remember, we use that when we discuss about the Java beans, right? So if you are not on that, refer to the object oriented session. When we are doing the working with Java beans, we use that approach, because then otherwise priority will go to the parameter. Now again, that kind of a ambiguity might happen if we have two variables with the same name, where you have the outer also we have the same variable, inner also we have the same variable or the name with the same variable. Now here we are not in trouble, because here it says x and here it says y. So therefore no issue. When they say x, it knows that it is referring to the outer x. When it says y, the compiler or the Java runtime knows that now it is referring to the your inner y, because there is no y in the outer, right? No y in the outer, right? But what happens is, uh, if you have a variable with the same name, that is both inner and outer classes have the variable with same name, now there is ambiguity. Now there is ambiguity. Now let's create that ambiguity. Okay, right? So I'm going to create a variable. So let's call it int z equal say 9, and here also I'm going to create a variable int z, and let's call it 11, or let's have the value 11. Okay, right. Now of course, if I refer it from outside, the value is going to be what? This one. If I refer it from inside or my inner class, the value is going to be 11. Okay, now let's double check that. Okay, let's double check that. So after looking at the x from here, I am going to look at the x z from here also. Z from outer. So I'm just printing z. So what I'm going to get? It's going to say 9. It's going to say 9. Okay. Now inside the inner class also I am going to refer to z. Now it has its own z now, because there are two z variables now. And z from inner, of course that value is going to be what? 11, because it's referring to its because higher priority is for its value, right? So it's something like when you say name, that is your name. When your mother says name, that is her name, right? Not child name, right? So that priority is for you. Now let's compile and run the, anyway we are calling this from test1, right? So I'm going to call the test1, not the test2. Test2 we are just calling the inner method only. In test1 we are calling the outer method. The outer method calls the inner method, so they are going to see everything when we are calling the my outer test1. Okay, so first I want to compile everything again, right? So no issues. So I hope I have saved everything. Yes. Now I am going to run this again. Right, now you can see z from inner is right, z from outer is 9, right? Z from inner, I wanted to change something else actually, so that is fine, 9. So z from 11, okay, I made a mess here. Z from, so I'm just printing y, it has to be z, right? So then it is going to be z from inner is 11. Of course I got the z from outer as 9, so that is fine, because z from outer is 9. So I haven't, I made a small mistake there. I had printed y rather than z. Now I'm going to recompile it. Right, now you can see z from inner, it's referred to the inner variable. Z from outer, right, it's referred to the outer variable, right, because that outer variable is 9. So z from outer, it's referred to as outer variable. When I refer it from inner class, it referring to the inner instance variable. Now the thing is, if from my inner class, if I want to refer to the outer variable z, how to access it? So that is my thing, right? If I want to access the outer variable z, now if there is no naming ambiguity, I can just refer it like this, right? Outer variables. But now we have a ambiguity. If I just say z, it is going to refer to this one, not this one, right? So if I really want to access this outer variable, how to do that? So that is what we are going to discuss now. Okay. Right, so if I just say this, it is going to be inside the outer, inner it is going to be the inner class. If it is a outer class, it is going to be the outer class. But my objective is, I want to refer to the outer class from within the inner class. In that case, what I am going to do is something like this, right? So if I want to refer to the z from inner, or right, that is z, or the local z, this is inner z. Right, now I want to refer to the outer z from inner, outer z from inner. Right, so this is outer z, that means the z of the outer class. What I have to do is, I have to do something like this dot, and you have to give your outer class name, right? Outer class name. So in my case, my outer class is called my outer, my outer. So this dot my outer dot z. Now it's, you are referring to the outer class z value. Of course, what is the outer class z value? Now it's going to say 9. Right? Now it's going to say 9. So that is how it works. Of course, here if you want, you could have make it this dot z, but remember this dot z and z is the same. Therefore, I didn't do that. Of course, if you want, you could have do this as this dot z, right? So if you want to refer to your one, your inner one, this or just z. If you want to refer to the outer one with the same name, you have to say this dot your class name. That means your outer class name dot whatever the variable. Then you are referring to the outer instance. Okay, outer instance. So that is how it works. So those are very advanced things. I want to finish everything. Okay, these things are never going to be tested in your exam. But remember, I don't mind your exams. I mind your future. I mind your IQ. I mind your talent. I mind your attitude. Right, more than exam. So your certificates. That is why I am doing this. Okay. Okay. So why I am going getting this error. Cannot find symbol. This dot my outer dot z. Why is that? My outer. Why is that? My outer. So that is strange. So let's see whether I have made a mistake. Sorry, not this dot. My outer dot this. So I made a mess of it. So this is not this dot my outer. My outer dot this. Right? My outer dot this. So it's other way. Then only you are referring to the outer class, right? So outer class name this, that is outer class z, right? This is your, either this can be just z or this dot z. Okay, this dot z. Now it should be okay. So I swapped last time, I was having mistake. Right, now I can run my test 1 again. Right, you can see inner z from inner is 11. Outer z from inner. Now outer z we are referring from inner, that is 9. Right, that is 9 because it's outer z still. Right, outer z, so it is 9. Right, so you are referring to this z. Right, so that happens only when you have the same name in the both the cases. Outer class also have the variable with the same name. Inner class also have a variable with same name. So once you understand these tricky things, your confidence is going to be get the boost, right? So it's going to be high confidence. Then when you are working with some general cases, like simple cases, you feel like nothing. So that is the case, right? So that is what we have to do, right? So if you are going to be confidence, so that is very important, right? So I am not caring about your degree or the certificate. I am caring about your confidence, right? So there are different levels, right? So we can stop learning at this level, or we can go into this level, right? If you can understand things at this level, right, that means you are really confident, really comfortable here, right? Assume that you usually you are going to work in this level, but when you are learning, you have to learn at this level. Then when you are working, you are really relaxed, because you have even think work at this level also, right? So it's something like that. Okay, but if you have learned only this level, right, then when you are working, you are little bit unease, not little bit unease, you are not very confident, because you know that if I go little bit beyond, I have a lot of uncertainty. I have never explored that kind of things, right? I have never explored that kind of things in my studies. Therefore you are always shaky. But when you are studying, if you have explored these things at that depth, you are really confident, you are really comfortable, right? ඔක හරියට කියනවා නම් හිමාලයේ කන්ද නැග්ග අපිට පිදුරු තලාගල කජ්ජද්ද කීකේ තමයි වැඩ කරන්නේ. හරි, අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න කාලේ හිමාලෙත් නැගලා තමයි ආව එක දවසක් එවරස් නැගලා ආවා. ඉතින් අපි පිදුරු තලාගල දිනපතා නැගලා එන්නම් ඕන්න. That is how your mindset should be. But if you have only climbed, right, piduru talagala or whatever in your life, nothing else, of course if your work is climb with that, still you are a little bit shaky, right? Because you know that my comfortable zone ends right there. Okay, so that is why we are learning little bit in depth, right? Okay, right, so I hope you get it, right? Right, now let's move on. Of course these things may not be tested in your exam, right, because those are your examiner treat you as a small kids. Okay, right. So now we are moving to the method local in a class, that is classes declared inside a method. Classes declared inside a method. For that I am going to create another class, because otherwise too many things are there already in this particular class, right? So I'm going to call this my outer one, right? My outer one. .java. Right, so let's create a method there. Public, let's say void, let's call it outer method. Right, so let's call it outer method. So what I am going to do is, inside this outer method, right, I am going to create a class. So that is a method local class, not just an inner class. Method method local class, right? So let's call it class method local, something like this, right? So that is a method local class. Now inside the method I can create an instance of that class and use it. But only thing is, if you create a class inside a method, that class is available only for that method. So why we are going to create a class inside a method? Because we are pretty sure these class instances of classes are going to be created only within this method. So that is why we don't want to make it even inner classes or normal classes, because no one else is going to use it, right? So why do you want to make it a top level class. Okay, so that is how we have to think. Okay, so let's have behavior void, let's call it method local do, and let's just have the system out println. Right, so let's call it hi from method local class, and hi from method local class. Now in this method I can create a, sorry, in this method I can create an instance of this class. Only thing is, if you are creating instance of this class inside this method, of course other methods cannot use this class. You have to have the class declaration above the creation of the instance. You can't have create the instance above and have the class declaration below. No. Now I can, if you want to, while you are doing other stuff in your outer method, you can create an instance of method local class. Right? Method local, let's call it ml equal new method local, and I can just call the method local do now, or if there are attributes I can set, right? So those things you can do. So let's call it method local do, right? Method local do. So that is how you work with, because I am not going to use this class anywhere else, only within this method. That is why I declared it inside the method, not even inside the class, right? If it is inside the class, other methods can use it, but this one, even the other methods are not going to use it. That is why I want to make it inside the class. Okay, right. So now let's run, now let's have a test for that one also. My outer one.java test. So I'm going to have another test class, copy paste, I will call it my outer test 3. My outer test 3. So there I am going to create a my outer one instance, like my outer one instance, and I am going to call the my outers, which one? Outer method. Outer method. Outer method. So this I just call it outer one. Right, now let's compile and run it. So I'm compiling everything. Okay, I get the error. My outer one, line 5. Line 5 here. What is the error? Okay, so it is not curly bracket, it must be normal bracket. Just a parameter. So that is compile error. Right. Public class my outer test. My outer test. Okay, it has my outer test 3. Right, my outer test 3. It was the public class. My file name is my outer test 3. Let's compile it. Right, no errors. Now I'm going to run my outer test 3. So what has to be the output? It's just going to say hi from method local class, because I have in my outer method I am creating an instance of method local class, and I am calling the behavior of that method local class. It says hi from the method local class. Okay, method local class. You can see hi from the method local. So why we want to create a class inside a method? Because that instance of that classes are going to be make sense, so use only within that method. That is why we wanted to make it inside a class. So very rarely we do these things, but if it has no purpose outside the method, of course, why don't you make it a method local class? That is okay, better encapsulation, right? You are even hiding this class from the outside the world, right? Only this method knows about that class, right? Because only this method need that particular class. Okay. So that is the method local inner classes. So those are also inner classes, but special inner classes, those are method local inner classes. Okay, so go through the notes again, right? I will be uploading the updated document because I have to fix one place, right? So there now we are moving to the final topic, that is anonymous classes. Now remember I didn't explain the nested static class, so I will explain that also. So basically nested static class is same as your inner class, right? Same as your inner class. So let's move on to this one again, right? So it is pretty much like a inner class, right? Only thing is you can make it a static, right? Then we call it a, that is a static nested class, right? Earlier it is a static non-static nested class, we call it inner class, right? Now if you mark it static, it becomes a static nested class. You can use it just like other classes, right? You can just use it just like other normal non-static inner class. So I will just compile everything. Okay, now only thing is you can't create instance like this outside. Now it can be used only within the this context only, right? You can use it within your class. Now you can't use like this because it's a static thing, right? So of course you can't do something like this here. Other than that, it's something same as your inner class, normal non-static inner class. Okay, now I will be able to compile it. Okay, still I'm getting error. Yeah, so the other thing is, now once it is a static, it is a static, you can't access non-static things from your other places. So because now it's a static class, static means we are not going to get instance out of it. Now other thing is you can't refer to the instance variables also. So that is the other issue. Now you can see that it says my outer Java line 15, non-static variable x cannot be referenced from the static context, right? So that is line number what is line number 14. Line number 14. Now you can see x is a instance variable. So you are a static class. Remember, even static method cannot access instance variables. Now you can see your class, your member is a static, therefore you cannot access the instance variable, right? You cannot access the instance variable of your parent or your outer, right? Of your outer, right? So that is how, why you are getting that error, right? I think line 14 and 15 also you must get the error. At line 13, right? You are accessing is an instance variable, right? So now you can't do these kind of things. This one you can't do, this one you can't do, this one you can't do. So x and z are from there, right? Of course you can't do this one also, right? So few things now you can't do because it's a static, so when you experiment only you will get it. Remember that even static method cannot have access instance variable. Now no wonder your static inner classes cannot access the instance variables, right? Even a static method cannot access the instance variable. Now of course your inner class is static, therefore you cannot access the instance variables, right? So now let's see. Now we are fine. Okay, now we are fine. So that is the difference between static nested class and a non-static nested class. So using non-static nested class we call it inner class. Okay, so in not static nested class, of course you can have your instance variables, and right, but you cannot access the instance variables and instance methods of the outer class because now you are a static, okay, right? So little bit complicated things. If you, so don't memorize any of these things, they are not going to test those things in the exam, right? They are not going to test those things in the exam. This is for your information. If you really like to do understand advanced things, okay, this is because engineers, they want to explore, right? I don't know how many of you are interested about the black holes, how many of you are interested about special relativity, right? So I don't know, right? So if you are engineer, if you are scientific minded, so rather than thinking finding about which divorce of another uh, actress or whatever, find about those things, right? Advanced things, right? So what is special relativity, what is black hole, right? So likewise, what is this, what happens when it is become static? Of course static methods cannot access instance variable. Now therefore even static nested class is not going to have. Now it's pure logic, it's pure logic. And of course then you then you think about why we have static inner classes or static nested classes. Why static nested classes are not allowed to access instance variable of my outer class. So that is for you, that is food for thought for you. Okay, that is food for thought for you. I'm just going to make it non-static for the time being and make those things right. Right now I am moving to the final topic, that is right, that is anonymous classes. Anonymous classes, okay. So that is what I wanted to come, right. For example, if you want to write some jQuery code, right, jQuery is heavily used in web development. Unless you have understood what is meant by anonymous classes, you are in trouble, right. So I will show you some code we use for semester 3 students, right, because you will be in semester 3 next year. So I am just preparing you for that, okay. So this is of course so I'm just download it from there, semester 3 code, because we have done jQuery for them. So I'm just explaining why anonymous classes are important, okay. Just going to unzip it. So they have the jQuery, right. So all of a sudden you will see this kind of code, right. So a lot of students find it, actually they blindly write codes because they don't understand or they have no clue of what is happening here. You can see $document.ready, inside that you have another function, right. So many other functions. Likewise inside functions you will feel like there are some other functions also. You don't know. Now by your Java knowledge, can you figure it out what is happening here? This is also, this is JavaScript code, jQuery code, right. So what we are doing here is usually we are using the anonymous method calls. Anonymous method calls. So this is, we are creating a function and we are calling that function at the same time, right. So that is a funny thing, right. So usually we have function one place, then we call that function, right. But here we are calling a function and that function is created inside that calling also. So that is called anonymous function. Anonymous function, right. So if you look at the normal JavaScript here, normal JavaScript here, then it is the normal code we do. Normal code we do, where you have functions in separate place, right. Separate this JavaScript code. I'm just explaining the use of anonymous classes, etc. And someone is calling that function from somewhere else, right. Somewhere else. In this case, it is called from here, right. So function is somewhere else, you are calling from somewhere else. But when it comes to here, the function is also there. You are calling a function, that function is also there, right. Function is also there inside the parameters. You have written the function itself, right. Calling, and that function is also there in the call itself. So that is how we work it. And again, when you are working with Ajax, we use the same concept, right. So this is an Ajax example I'm going to show you, right. This is very simple Ajax call. Right. Again you can see, so this is an object we are creating. On that we have a property. For that property we have a function, and that function is there. The function itself is there, right? So this is the body of the function. So we don't have the function separate place and calling it from here. No, we are just calling the function, and that call function is also there. Call function is also there. So you can see when it comes to jQuery, when it comes to Ajax, if you want to understand, right? So of course you can memorize these things without understanding. So of course you might be able to pass your exam also, but then you are really at unrest, right? So you are never, if you don't understand these things, of course you might go to the exam and pass it. Why? Exam is just one day in your life, right? Or just the few weeks closer to that, right? And of course you are going to be in real unrest at that time also. You are really tense, but you don't want to make that unrest in your throughout your life, right? So that means if you don't understand these things, of course you might go and pass your exams thinking that this is one time life experience, but you are never going to be a software engineer, right? Because you don't want to every day when you get up you are going to work and you are going to do something that you don't understand. So you can now you can think of the terrible situation you are in, right? Every day you are going to the work and doing something, but you haven't understood what is we are doing or why we are doing like that. After sometimes you are going to be really stressed, really stressed. Your life is going to be miserable. So if you, that is why I'm saying, if you want to do some software development, or if you want to be a career in software development, engineering is not a simple thing. Actually I did a session for quick revision for software engineering yesterday for the semester 3 student. I have uploaded it to the uh, I have uploaded it to the YouTube. I highly recommend you to just have a look at that one. Though it is that subject is in your semester 3, we discuss about the complexities, the real world scenarios, and all those things, and the fun stuff of doing software development. You are here, you are just learning coding. You are not learning how the real world software engineering is done. So how the real world software engineering is done, you can refer to that video. The last video I have uploaded say software engineering division part 1. Okay, so if you are interested, but if it is again about 2.5 hour session, but it's really worth to get the idea about how the things are really happening in the industry. Okay, so now if you want to understand these kind of codes, you have to understand the concept of anonymous classes. Okay, so now that is what we are going to do, right? Because you don't want to go to semester 3 and right, go in or walk in dark, right? Walk in dark here and there, not knowing what is really happening, right? So it's not going to make you comfortable, right? Okay, so therefore these things can be understood. Now again, if you have not understood anything up to now, right, you have to ask. You have to ask in this session. Of course I know that you hardly ask questions, you are not from that culture, right? Of course if you want, you can ask in the WhatsApp group as well. Okay, right. Now let's move on to the anonymous classes. I explain you where this is heavily used, right? And again, if you want to write some event driven programming in swing, definitely you are going to use anonymous classes, right? Definitely you are going to use anonymous classes. So every day developers, engineers write a lot of anonymous classes when it comes to event handling. Okay, right? So therefore it's up to you, right? Either some people like to understand things, some people they just want to pass their time or just get some certificate or whatever. So I am pretty sure if you don't understand anonymous classes, you are not going to survive in the industry, right? At least you go to the industry and learn this, or you are going to get out of the industry, right? IT field. Okay, right? I mean software development, right? Okay, so anonymous class means a class which is created on the fly and used, which does not even have a name. So that is why we call it anonymous, right? Anonymous means what? Class without having a name. So why we are not giving it a name? We are going to use it only once. If we are going to use it only once, no point of giving it a name also. We just create that class, an instance of that class, use it, and you are done. So no point having a name. We need a name if you are going to reuse again and again create instance of that class, because we need that name to create class instances. But if you are not going to do that, right, only once we are going to create instance, we just create that class and create the instance at the same time and use it, and we are done. Okay, so that is one time use class, something like disposable cup. something like disposable cup. Only once we are going to use it. Therefore, we are not going to give it even a name, because once you create it, use it, throw it, right? No one is going to use it again, so no need of having a name. Okay, right? So use of anonymous classes, anonymous subclasses with overridden methods, anonymous class implemented a specific interface, anonymous class defined as an argument, right? So I am not going to cover everything, right, because it's little bit lengthy thing. I'm just going to give you the basic idea that is good enough to proceed. Okay, good enough to proceed, right? So I am going to use this particular example now, right, to explain what is mean by anonymous class. Okay, so but if you can understand, it's really interesting topic. It's really, and of course it's really important topic also, right? So I'm going to do this example now. So I'm going to create a class called popcorn. Remember, after this, your semester one, you are not going to learn any Java, nothing else, right? Nothing else, no Java or no other any other programming language other than PHP. So therefore, when you are learning some one language, learn for the fullest, right? Let's call it popcorn.java, and I'm going to have method called pop. Method called pop. Let's say public class popcorn public void pop. Public void pop. I'm just going to have system out println. Let's call it popcorn. Right. Right. So that is a normal class, nothing special. Just it has a instance method. Just it has an instance method. Okay. Now I'm going to create another class called food. Right. Another class called food. So let's create that class. So these are advanced concepts and hardly tested in your exams, but I want to do this and finish it. So I don't want to have gaps in your, because I want be really confidence people, right? Let's call it public class food, because this is really interesting thing and really important thing. Okay, right? So now I'm going to code the rest of the stuff. I'm going to create an instance of popcorn there, right? I'm going to create instance of popcorn there as, right, popcorn. Let's call it popcorn. You can do that, right? Association. Then what I'm going to do is, right, I am going to override a behavior of this pop here, right? So that is a funny thing we are going to do, right? Anyway, let's have another method called pop it. I'm going to explain everything, and you can understand if you have focus. Void public void, let's call it pop it. Remember, our popcorn method has a behavior called pop, right? So what I can do, of course I will call it popcorn, right? So I can just call the pop method because it has the pop method. So this is nothing new. This is normal object-oriented programming, right? It's not normal object-oriented programming, right? So I have instance of popcorn, which is of this class. It has a behavior called pop, which prints is popcorn. I'm just calling the pop method from my Pop-it behavior. Now I am going to have a test class, right? So let's call it pop. Okay, so let's call it the pop demo or popcorn demo. New popcorn demo Java. So I'm not expecting everyone to understand this, right? Right. So of course, all of you are not going to be software engineers, right? But so those, if you can understand, your confidence is going to be really high. Okay, right? So I'm going to have a main method. I'm just going to copy this. Pop. So everywhere I just call popcorn simple. Therefore, I'm going to just call it popcorn simple. Just as a convention. Demo. Since I'm always use test, why don't we call it test? So that is partial of life, right? Follow conventions. Then I'm going to rename the class also. It's always good to have proper conventions. Then you are very systematic, right? Popcorn test. This is my main method. So nothing fancy. This is just simple object oriented yet. I'm going to create an instance of food. Still we are not using any anonymous classes. Food, let's say f equal new food, and I'm going to call the pop-it behavior. Then that it is going to refer to the popcorn object and call the pop behavior of the, and I'm going to say pop, or it will say popcorn is pop. Okay, right. So let's call it the pop-it behavior f dot pop-it. Right, so this is not nothing fancy, simple object oriented programming, right? So I have a class here, right? I have a class called popcorn test. It is sending a message to the food object, its pop-it behavior. Food object is creating a popcorn object and calling the pop behavior, right? So some message passing, right? And of course I'm going to get the returns. Then we are done with the code. Okay, right? So let's run this. Let's run the popcorn test class. I'm going to compile everything again. Hopefully there are no compile errors from the previous examples. So I have saved everything. And now I can run the Java. I'm just going to have just one system out saying popcorn is pop, right? So not, still we are not using any anonymous classes, right? Okay, popcorn test, there is no main method. Public static void main popcorn test. Why is that? Have we created class code sassy? Okay, I have created all these classes in a different place. That is the issue, right? So they are in my Ajax folder, Ajax folder, Ajax folder, right? So I have to copy it from there because I went there. Now it is saved somewhere else. So I'm going to copy it from there. Yes, so you can see popcorn test, and food. All three I'm going to cut it and take back to my code folder. So I want to have it here. Okay, right. Now I'm going to get some errors. I'm going to close everything, and now I have again the popcorn, food, and popcorn test. Okay, now I am going to compile it. Okay, so I get error. So what is the error? Right, file name conflict. So it says popcorn p capital. So here I have c cap. It has to be c simple because my file name is c simple because it's a public class. So I fix that error. Let's compile it again. Another error. Okay, it's not food. I have made that food. Food. Right. So that error must go away. Popcorn again, capital C I am using. It has to be C simple. So here it's okay. Right now, I hope everything is okay. Right now, I can run Java. What is my class? Popcorn test. Right. So it just says popcorn is pop. Right. So there is nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. Now what I am going to do is I am going to create an anonymous class. So anonymous class means what? Class without having a name, right? So what I am going to do is, now look at this closely. I am going to, in the food class, I am going to override the pop class. Sorry, pop behavior. Now remember we have the pop behavior here. I am going to create a override the pop behavior in that when we are creating the instance. At that moment itself we are going to do that. At that moment itself we are going to do that. Okay. So let's see how to do that. Right. Let's see how to do that. So this is just one example. Now remember we are creating a popcorn instance, right? What we are going to do is we are not going to create a popcorn instance. We are going to create a subclass of popcorn instance. Now you can see there is no subclass of popcorn. We just have the popcorn class. But what we are going to do is we are going to create a instance of a not a popcorn, a subclass of popcorn. Of course, you know that in a subclass you can do overriding, you can add some behaviors, etc. Okay, so this is how we are going to do that. Look at closely. This is how we are going to create instance, but we are not going to create a popcorn instance. We are going to create a subclass of popcorn instance, and I am going to override a method also. So look at closely. This is where that funny syntax comes that you show in your jQuery and Ajax, right? Now this is your class. Now I am creating instance of a new class. I am going to create the class here. Of course it is going to be inherited from the popcorn class, but new things I can add here, and also I can do overriding. Now I am going to override it here, right? I am going to override it here. I am going to override the pop method. I am going to override the pop method, something like this. Okay. So this is not, I am creating, of course the reference variable is popcorn, but my object is not popcorn, something extended from popcorn, and I have overridden the pop method. I will say my special popcorn is pop. Now if it is just a popcorn, it is going to say popcorn is pop, right? But this is not a, though it looks like a popcorn object, this is not a popcorn object. This is a subclass of a popcorn and its object, and we have never given it a name also, because only we are going to use it for this particular instance only, right? So now if I run this, I am going to see not this particular output. I am going to see this particular S out, right? My special popcorn is pop, right? So just to explain it, I will have two instances, and then you can better understand it, right? So I will have normal way creating an instance, right? So I will call it popcorn 1, I will call it popcorn 2, right? Then for the popcorn 1 I am calling the pop method, that is really popcorn instance. The popcorn 2 is a subclass of popcorn, and which has overridden the pop behavior. It's going to give a different output, right? So this is going to say popcorn is pop. So it will take time, right? So we can't do object oriented programming in a hurry. where is it, this one. So this is going to say popcorn is pop, and this is going to say because it's anonymous class which has overridden the popcorn class and the pop behavior of the popcorn class. Okay, it's going to say my special popcorn is pop. Okay, because this is a popcorn instance, right? This is not a popcorn instance, though it looks like popcorn instance. It is a subclass of a popcorn which has overridden the pop behavior as well. If you want, you can add some additional behaviors also. Okay, right, now let's see whether we are getting this output. Okay, you can't just rush through these concepts because you can do really interesting things, right? So it's going to be popcorn test. Now you can see popcorn is pop, that is from the calling the pop behavior of this class, popcorn 1. The second output came my special popcorn is pop because it's a anonymous class we just create on the fly at the object creation time. We are creating an object of a subclass of popcorn and we are assigning it to this reference variable. Of course, the subclass the reference you can refer to a subclass from a superclass. Remember, you can have animal a equal new dog, right? Something like that. Of course, if you want, you can have new behaviors as well, right? Let's add something like this. Flavor. So my special popcorn is flavored, but you don't have this kind of behavior for this popcorn object because it's a pure popcorn object. Now what I am having is a subclass of a popcorn for this popcorn too. Therefore I can even call the flavor behavior now. So that is called anonymous class because we never give a name to this particular class. It's on the fly created class and just from this class we are creating instance without giving it a name. Okay, without giving it a name. And so we can just call the flavor behavior also, and it's going to say my special popcorn is flavored. You can't do that for popcorn 1. You can't do that for popcorn 1. Right. Now let's see. Let's compile it again. Okay, so I get error. Cannot find symbol. FLAVOUR. Yes, it looks like special things you can't do. You can only override. Right? You can do only override, not special things. Yes. In anonymous classes, you can't add new behaviors, right? So you can do only overriding. So let's double check in the Google. Right? So can I add new behaviors or methods in anonymous class in Java? So I thought I can add a new behavior also. I think you can only override, nothing else. Yes, I will double check again and let you know in the next session. I think you can only override. You can only override. You can't have new behaviors. Okay, so I think that is why we are getting that error. It says cannot find simple. I will double check, right? Because in this example also you can see they are only overriding. They are not writing any new behavior, right? So therefore I assume that yes, you can have only that. Okay, so same thing you can do if you have interface, right? So of course I am going to remove this one, so you can't add it, you can only override, right? You can only override. Yes, okay, so I got the reason also. Of course you can have it, right? But you cannot assign to this one. Why? You can't call it because still this pop, you are referring to a popcorn. Actually you may be able to do this, but it is useless because we are having a popcorn reference variable. Using a popcorn reference variable, you can't call this because for the popcorn this behavior is not visible. right? So it's something like your dog can have roaming behavior, but using animal reference variable you can't call the roam behavior. Same thing, though you are creating a new behavior, it is useless because your reference variable is not a that subclass. Your reference variable is your superclass, of course, right? So that is why I think it might allow you to have this, but it will not allow you to call this. So that is my guess according to my knowledge. I assume that this might be okay, but this is never going to be useful. And also because this is never going to be useful, I again think Java compiler will not allow me to do that also. Usually if something is useless, Java compiler do not allow us to do that, right? So I assume that Java compiler might give me error again saying that this is a sort of useless code. Okay, so let's see. So if you don't understand why this is not allowed, you can ask me. There's a perfect reason, because your reference variable is popcorn. No point having this kind of a thing. You are never going to refer to it. You cannot refer to it. Okay. Okay. So Java has allowed me to use it, code it, but only thing is your popcorn nature cannot allow you to call this. Actually, this is a useless code. This is useless code. Actually, you can't say this is useless code. I could have called this inside this pop method. So you can see so I am again checking why Java is allowing this kind of a nonsense thing. So I told you that this is never going to be used. Why? You are creating a popcorn instance, reference variable, or your remote control is of popcorn type, therefore you are not going to call it outside. Again I told that if it is useless, why Java is allowing you to have this, because no one is going to call it. Now again I got the idea why Java is allowing this is, though the outside world cannot call this method, your override method might call this method, right? So that might be the reason Java is allowing this. Then it is again going to be useful. So let's double check, right? So you can see it's very interesting. If you want to, so what I'm going to do is I am going to call this. I hope that is the reason that this can be done, and that is the reason they allow this method to be there. Now you can see I am outside the world is not going to call this flavor. Overridden version is going to call. That is perfectly okay. Now I hope my special popcorn is flavored output must also be there. Right now I'm not calling the flavor behavior because that is illegal. I'm just calling the pop behavior, but because it's an anonymous subclass, its pop behavior is going to call the flavor behavior. Okay, so I hope now that my special popcorn is pop and my special popcorn is flavored will be called. Okay, right. So let's compile and run it and see. So you can see these are very interesting things. Right now you can see no compile errors. Now I must get the proper output also. Now you can see my special popcorn is flavored. Now you can see this is not useless. Now remember I told you that if something is useless, JVM is not going to do that kind of things, right? So right, remember now remember there's a scenario we discussed in object oriented. Class cannot be both abstract and final. If your class is both abstract and final, the compiler is going to give you compile error. Why? If it is abstract, you can't create instances. If it is final, you can't subclass. If you can't subclass and create instances, no one is going to use it. Therefore, compiler gives it as a compile error. Same thing, if this method cannot be used anywhere, compiler is going to give you error. That is I thought. Then I found that okay, compiler is not giving errors. Then I thought okay, compiler is not giving errors because there is a way of using this, right? So of course you can call it from the your override method, right? Override method. Now you can see, right? If you are really serious about polymorphism, right? So you have to learn nested classes. You have to learn inner classes. You have to learn anonymous classes. You will design things in a very smart ways, right? You will design things in a very reusable, maintainable ways, right? So that is why I'm doing this, right? Though it is never going to be tested, right? I never know that in the next year they might test it, but right now it has not been tested. But if you are doing something like OCJP, like Oracle certification for Java, these things are heavily tested, right? That is why we really like to have OCJP certified developers in the software field, because they have to encounter these kind of things, right, in their exam. So that is why the industry really like that kind of people who are having the vendor certification like OCJP, Microsoft certifications, and Cisco certification when it comes to networking, because they check whether you have all these knowledge. Okay, right. So I hope you get a little bit of idea about the use of anonymous classes. Now you can see this is a anonymous class instance. It's a subclass of popcorn which has overridden the pop method, and I'm creating instance of that, right, on the fly. So similar things can be done when it comes to interface, implementing interface also. So for example, if you have interface like this, right, you can create a class, and of course if you have class, now you can create a class and implement that interface as well, right, implement that interface as well. So that is your class is implementing an interface on the fly, right, on the fly. So you better do this at home, right. So you just create an interface, you create this class, right, and test. Now you can see this interface is cookable. Now you can, now you have you ever see that you are creating instance of interface, right. So this is something like you are creating instance of interface, but this is not really creating instance of interface. This is of course the interface. Here you are creating instance of a class which has implement the interface called cookable, right. So that is very interesting example, right. So again, if you have the head first Java book, all these examples are there, right. Head first Java book, I highly recommend you to go through the head first Java book, right, head first Java book, because I am not going to do all those things for you. Okay, right. Then of course you can have the argument, define anonymous inner classes as well. In the argument, we are sending argument, and that argument must be of particular type. We are creating the instance of that type in the argument itself, right. So it is something like this, right. You can see here we are doing something like this, right. Do we don't do stuff. There's a parameter we want to send. That parameter we want to create instance of object. We are creating the class and the instance at the same time. So rather than having that class separately, that object we are creating from the class itself, and we are sending it as a parameter or the argument, right. So actually this kind of a thing we are doing when it comes to that jQuery coding and Ajax coding. Okay, so think about those things, right. It's really important and really interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to go into details, right. So that's it. I'm going to do, I'm not going to do anything else for the inner classes and nested classes. So I was planning to do the annotations and I was planning to do the annotations and the enumerations, but I am not going to do it today because it will be too much for you. I will be doing the enumerations, annotations, and some other topics because these are really small topics, right? So these are really small topics. We'll do those things in a separate session. Those two and some other topic together, right? Something like string or something. Okay. So I'm going to stop it right now. Do you have any questions? Because I really hope that you are having hundreds of questions, right? Right. So any questions you have? So I really like to have some questions, right? So I'm expecting a lot of questions. At least ask those questions in your. Actually, first thing is you have to go through this. I will be sharing the code also. I will send a message to the WhatsApp group. So once that is done, do some experimentation. If you still don't understand, just let me know. I am going to have another small, or at the end of another session, I will take all your questions, right. So I will take all your questions as long as you are asking questions. Okay, right. So then if you don't have any questions right now, I know that you may be still confusing a little bit because it will take some time to go into your mind, right. So now it might be still it's in your head. Best thing is now itself you think about that, right. Now itself, today itself, take the notepad and command prompt and do some experiment. You can end up as a really confidence engineer, right. Really confidence engineer. I also invite you to download and have a look at that software engineering session that I did for session semester 3 student. Then only your mindset is going to be in the engineer's mindset Otherwise it is going to be programmers mindset. What we need is engineers, not programmers. Okay, so don't worry. If you have the engineers mindset, you can tackle these complexities. Okay, right. So we are going to stop this session right now then. Thank you.